Hello, my friend. In this video, I wanted to clear up what the whole Joe Rogan, Neil Young, Spotify controversy really means for smaller independent artists like you and me. This isn't supposed to be some kind of political video. I'm not going to take a stance or really go over the political part of this, but as a general kind of overview of what's been happening is Joe Rogan has a podcast on Spotify. Spotify paid a lot of money to get Joe Rogan's podcast on there, and Joe Rogan's been saying a lot of controversial things about, the state of the world right now. Because of that, a lot of artists have reacted to that, particularly artists like Neil Young, Joni Mitchell. A few other ones haven't taken such a big stance as actually getting their music pulled off of Spotify, but that has been the big reaction, where some of the larger artists are pulling some of their music off of Spotify, and there can be, people following suit with that. So fans also being like, okay, I'm done paying for Spotify, all that kind of stuff. That's kind of a recap of what's been happening. So it's kind of clear what's happening there in terms of larger artists, but how does this really impact smaller artists like you and I? And ultimately, I think there's two ways that this is going to impact artists like us. One is in the short term and the other is in the long term. So I think ultimately in the short term, some small group of people leaving Spotify because of this current controversy is really not going to affect you too much. It's really not going to be that many people that are actually going to be leaving Spotify in the long run. I think it's really more of like a small little flare up that's happening right now. Additionally, I think that in this short-term period, removing your music off of Spotify right now as a smaller artist, I think would be more of a mistake and would hurt you more than anything, with just one caveat there. I think as smaller artists, we need to get discovered in any way that we can, and we need to have our music in places that people are actually listening to music. Spotify right now, for better or for worse, is kind of the main place that people are streaming music and listening to music, and I think we need to be there in order to get heard. If you're only putting out your music on, I don't know, like SoundCloud or something like that, no one's on SoundCloud really, it's going to be harder for your music to get heard. With that said, that one caveat that I did mention is that if you do find that you have a large dedicated fan base, and if you truly feel like you would like to remove your music off of it, and you feel that your fan base would react in a positive way, and this could maybe, stir up some memberships or Patreon subscriptions in replace of Spotify's revenue stream, and if you have some way for them to actually listen to your music as an alternative, then it could be an okay way. But I think ultimately in the short term, for smaller artists like us, this doesn't have too much of a big of an impact. With that said, when it comes to the long-term impact of kind of what's going on here, I have kind of a bit more of a stronger opinion, because I feel like this is another signal that Spotify may not be king in like 2, 3, 4, 5 years' time. It's not just this controversy, it's the fact that the controversies are stacking up. So whether it's, this Joe Rogan thing, compounded with the fact that the profits of Spotify, or some of the profits, I should say, of Spotify is going into like military contracts and weapon purchases and stuff like that, if you've heard about that. And then in addition to the fact that stacking that controversy up with the fact that Spotify pays artists so little and is actually trying to constantly pay artists less on top of that. And the fact that I think artists are always going to be very vocal about that particular controversy too. I can imagine that all of this may stack up over the next few years, whether it's with, more of this happening or more shady things that Spotify is doing in any way. I could see that eventually coming to like kind of a cataclysmic event where people do have a mass exodus off of Spotify, and there's an alternative that shows up. It may be Apple Music, it might be something else completely that offers that, streaming service that people can listen to music nicely, but in a more fair way and less problematic way. And ultimately, I think this is really why it's so important for artists, at our size, and I guess really any size, to focus on building a tribe. So whether that's with a Patreon or a membership or even just some kind of email list, I think Boba Fett put it pretty well when he said that you can't get too far without a tribe. And I think this is really important for artists. One of the biggest reasons is, and I've talked about this in other videos, is that by actually having, ownership of your fan base, having a community or something off of any of these third-party sites that you kind of own and you can build a world around, it's a lot easier to weather these kinds of storms. So if there is a large exodus of users off of Spotify onto whatever the next thing is, it's a lot easier for you to reach out to your tribe and say, hey, pulling my music off of Spotify, or people aren't using Spotify, this new thing is the coolest, move over to it. It's going to be a lot harder for you to message all of your Spotify listeners, because they don't let you do that, and say, hey, move off of Spotify, move on to this new thing. Same thing exactly applies to social media. That's constantly changing as well. As people are moving away from Instagram to, say, TikTok, eventually people are going to move on from TikTok to something else. It's inevitable. It seems, especially with social media, there's this pattern of offering a really cool service to people for free, then slowly limiting the organic reach so that the content creators have to pay ads to reach the people that they once did. This eventually happens and then has a tipping point of people moving on to a new social media service. But by owning a tribe, again, you'll be able to weather any of these storms, whether it's people leaving Spotify because of a controversy or whether it's people just naturally moving on to another social media platform. You're just in a better position when you do have this ownership, this membership, this Patreon, this tribe, whatever it is. So if you've been watching this channel for a while now, you may have noticed that I've been putting out more and more content on like memberships and Patreons and stuff like that. And the reason I'm doing this is not because of, say, something like this Joe Rogan controversy. It's something that I've honestly felt is the path forward for artists for a long time now. Because I truly do believe that the ownership of like a fan base and creating a community and a tribe is the way forward for artists. As things are moving into potentially interesting territory with like Web 3.0 and all that kind of stuff, I think things might be moving away from kind of renting out your experience with things like Spotify and Instagram and all that kind of stuff, and actually having some kind of ownership of your fan base. And again, I've mentioned it in this video and in other videos, but having that tribe allows you to weather these storms. When it does come to a head that people are moving off of Spotify, you're in a better position to adapt to that. So with that said, what can a smaller artist like you or I do in a situation like this? Personally, the video title that I probably put, or the thumbnail, is complete clickbait. I am not going to be removing my music off of Spotify as a smaller artist. It does help me get discovered, and I think ultimately I don't mind the small pay rate because it's a very convenient way for my listeners to actually listen to me, and that's kind of what the most important thing is to me, not really the pay rate or anything like that, or even any of these controversies. For me, I'm a bit more of like a fan first kind of perspective, but that's just me. For you, I think you're going to want to make your own choice on this matter, and kind of assess everything. If you're making a lot of money from Spotify right now from your royalties, let's be honest, we're living in like a capitalist society right now, and you need that money to be able to keep working on your career and funding new things and keep putting out new projects for your fans. So I think that's something to put into perspective as well. But ultimately, if you do feel like the right choice is for you to pull your music off of Spotify, I think whichever choice you do, communicate it clearly to your audience and your fans, and I'm sure that they'll understand your choice in the matter. However, regardless of this, I do believe that you should just keep releasing music and just keep doing what you feel is right. I think regardless of if you're releasing music on Spotify or anything like that, I think it's important to keep releasing music as consistently as you can. I prefer monthly. I think it's a good, solid way to keep in touch with fans and keep giving them new music to listen to over time and keep that kind of engagement rolling. And I think that's ultimately what the best thing for an artist to do in this situation is, kind of keep that head down, keep pushing out more music and kind of avoiding controversies when possible. The other thing that I would recommend is, little shameless plug, but like and subscribe if you did find this useful and you want to learn more about Patreons and memberships and all that kind of stuff. I'll be honest, I haven't quite cracked the code on how the best way of a smaller artist is to kind of build this tribe and build a Patreon or a membership or anything like that. But that's what I've been dedicating the last couple months to, and I'm going to continue dedicating to kind of researching this, all the different tools that are out there, ways that you can get Patreon subscribers and all that kind of stuff, and actually build a thriving membership and a thriving community. It's what I'm really interested in right now, and that's what I'm going to be putting out a lot of videos and content on this channel over the next little while as I try to figure out how to crack this nut and build out my own membership. And once that's successful, I'll just show you how I did it, because that's kind of what I do on this channel. Figure things out and then show you how to do it as well. So with that said, if you did find this video useful in any way, please like and subscribe. Other than that, leave your comments down in the description box or whatever the heck it is down below if you have an opinion on this, which I'm sure you do. I probably won't reply. I'll be honest about that. I'm not the best at replying on YouTube, so just putting that out there. But regardless of what happens next, I believe if you keep putting out music, you're going to be A-okay. And Spotify is just another platform at the end of the day. We'll move on from this, and good luck on your next release, my friend. Have a good one.